The Philadelphia Eagles just dropped some serious news that fans have been waiting on for weeks. Brandon Graham is officially back. And this isn't just a feel-good story about a franchise legend returning for one last ride. This move has the potential to truly change the energy and production of the Eagles' defense. Coming out of retirement for his 16th season, BG isn't just stepping back onto the field for nostalgia's sake. He's back to work. And knowing the kind of presence he brings on and off the field, this could be exactly the jolt this defense has been waiting for. Now let's set the stage. The Eagles had just pulled off a strong win over the Minnesota Vikings, a game that got the momentum swinging back in their favor. But even as fans were still buzzing about that victory, all eyes quickly shifted toward the Brandon Graham situation. It felt like the writing was on the wall. People were just waiting for that official announcement. And then boom, Tuesday morning, it finally became real. Graham confirmed it on his podcast, and shortly after, the Eagles made it official. He's back. 16 seasons with the same team. That's something special. You just don't see that in the NFL anymore. Graham's voice cracked with energy and joy as he made the announcement. No dramatic promises, no grand predictions, just a veteran who still has love for the game, belief in his teammates, and a hunger to contribute. And that's the kind of mentality that makes him so valuable. The Eagles don't need BG to be an every-down player or replicate his peak production. What they need is leadership, experience, and situational impact. And that's exactly what Graham brings to the table. No one questions his heart. No one questions what he's meant to this franchise. The real question now is, what can he still do on the field? Look, it would be unrealistic to expect him to step in and immediately dominate. He hasn't been through training camp, didn't take a single rep in preseason, and is coming off a tough injury. He tore his triceps last season, returned in the Super Bowl, and unfortunately re-injured it again. That's a lot to bounce back from. But here's the thing. If there's anyone who can do it, it's Brandon Graham. Even if it takes a few weeks to get back into true football shape, even if the snaps are limited at first, his presence alone could raise the level of everyone around him. Vic Fangio put it pretty simply. When asked about what Graham could bring, he said they'll see what kind of shape he's in and what he's retained from last season. And honestly, that's the right approach. It's a wait-and-see situation, but there's a real belief internally that BG can help, maybe even sooner than expected. Multiple reports are already saying he could be active this Sunday against the Giants. And if that happens, expect Lincoln Financial Field to erupt. Because this is bigger than just a roster move. This is a statement. The Eagles are going for it. It's no coincidence that Graham's return comes at a time when this pass rush needs it most. With injuries piling up, including the recent hamstring issue that has sidelined Azeez Ojulari, the depth on the edge was looking thin. So not only is Graham's return emotional and symbolic, it's also strategic. This team needs help up front. And while his snap count will likely be low at first, the coaching staff clearly sees value in getting him into the rotation, especially as other players work their way back from injury. And speaking of players returning, the Eagles might be getting even more reinforcements soon. Nolan Smith, who's been on injured reserve for 4 weeks, is inching closer to being back in action. He posted a pretty clear message on social media, 1 more week. That lines up with the original plan to bring him back after the bye week. And honestly, that could be huge. Smith has been a difference maker when healthy, especially down the stretch last season and into the playoffs. He was getting pressure, getting sacks, and generally making life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. That's exactly the kind of juice the Eagles need off the edge right now. So let's connect the dots. Graham is back. Smith is almost back. That's 2 major additions to a defensive front that's already starting to heat up. And when you factor in guys like Jalen Carter and Jalix Hunt, who are generating consistent pressure but just haven't finished plays with sacks yet, you start to see the potential for this unit to really take a leap forward. According to some recent data, Carter and Hunt are among the few defensive linemen with over 21 pressures and 0 sacks, which tells you they're getting close. The dam is about to break. They're getting into the backfield. They just need to start closing. If you're an Eagles fan, this is the kind of news cycle you dream about. The defense is finally getting healthy. Key veterans are returning. Young talent is on the verge of breaking through. And all of it comes at a critical point in the season with a divisional game against the Giants on the horizon. The timing couldn't be better. And we haven't even gotten into the impact of Nakobe Dean yet. The linebacker made his return last week and immediately made a difference. Against the Vikings, he was flying around, making tackles, and anchoring the run defense in a way that this team had been missing. That physical presence in the middle of the field is what the Eagles were lacking, and Dean brought it in full force. For the first time all year, the defense held an opponent under 100 rushing yards. That's not a coincidence. Dean's instincts and speed were on display all night. He finished with 6 tackles and a tackle for loss, but it was more than just stats. He changed the tone. You could feel his presence. And with him back in the lineup, along with the expected return of Smith and the surprise return of Graham, this Eagles front seven suddenly looks like it's ready to remind the league why it was so feared last season. Now, of course, there are still concerns on the injury front. Ojulari's status for Sunday looks doubtful. Defensive back Adoree Jackson is also in concussion protocol and may not be cleared in time. That could open the door for young guys like Kali Ringo or Jaquan Bennett to step in and make an impact. And Fangio has hinted that both players are being evaluated this week. It's going to come down to practice and how ready Bennett looks after missing time with a pec injury. Ringo, meanwhile, has gotten meaningful reps and continues to grow with each outing. The Eagles are hoping that one of these young corners can step up and solidify that back end, especially with New York's offense showing signs of life recently. And just to make things even more interesting, this weekend's matchup is the first Kelly Green game of the season. The Birds are undefeated in those throwbacks. Call it superstition or call it swagger, but they've brought good luck so far. The fans will be fired up. The players will be amped. And with all these fresh additions and returning leaders, you get the feeling something big is brewing. Brandon Graham didn't have to come back. He could have walked away with his legacy cemented, his body intact, and the respect of every single Eagles fan. But he chose to return, chose to put the pads back on, chose to fight for one more season, not for individual accolades, but to help this team win. That says everything you need to know about the man. And now the question is, what happens next? While the buzz around Brandon Graham's return is dominating the headlines, the full picture of what's going on with the Eagles right now is far more layered. And honestly, even more exciting when you look at how the rest of this defense is shaping up. Because yes, BG coming back is a huge morale boost. But when you start digging into the injury updates and the younger talent stepping into bigger roles, you realize this team might be getting hot at exactly the right time. Take Nolan Smith, for example. The guy's been sitting on injured reserve for a month, and while he's missed some valuable reps, the plan was never to rush him back. The Eagles knew what they had in Smith and wanted to make sure he was truly ready before throwing him into the fire again. And judging by his post on social media that said, "1 more week," the timing looks just about perfect. If all goes according to plan, Smith will be back right after the bye week, which lines up with what the team initially expected. That means this Eagles pass rush, already preparing to bring Graham back into the rotation, is also going to get their most explosive edge rusher back in the mix. Smith's presence can't be overstated. When he's fully healthy and unleashed, he changes the way offenses game plan. He has that kind of speed, that kind of bend around the edge, and most importantly, the kind of mindset that makes him dangerous in big moments. And look, it's not just about the starters. The reinforcements coming back are going to have a ripple effect across the entire defensive line. When you add guys like Smith and Graham back into the fold, it takes pressure off players like Jalen Hurts and Jalen Carter, who've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting lately. Both of them have been right on the edge of breakout games. Hunt and Carter are getting pressure. The analytics are there. They're winning one-on-one matchups, collapsing pockets, making quarterbacks uncomfortable. But they just haven't cashed in on those pressures with sacks yet. And that's the key word. Yet. You can feel it coming. The tape shows it. And with more help rotating in, they're going to have fresher legs and more favorable matchups, which should finally let them finish those plays. Carter especially has shown flashes of dominance, using that rare combination of size, quickness, and violent hands to get into the backfield. He's already among the league leaders in pressures from the interior, and when you watch the film, you see just how close he is on so many snaps. A half second more. One less step for the quarterback. A little help from a collapsing edge. It's all right there. And once that first sack comes, you can bet more will follow. The same goes for Hunt, who's been steadily improving his get-off and timing with each week. The sacks will come. And when they do, this defense could go from good to scary in a hurry. But none of that really matters if the injury situation continues to spiral. That's why the updates on guys like Cam Jurgens and Moro Ojomo are so important. Jurgens went down with a knee injury on the very first play against the Vikings, which is wild because he still managed to stay in the game for several more series before eventually coming out. That tells you how tough he is, but also raises concerns about just how bad that knee is. He's getting an MRI to determine the full extent of the damage, but even if it's something relatively minor, you have to assume the Eagles will be cautious. Jurgens has become a key piece on that offensive line, and with the Giants' defensive front playing at a high level, you don't want to take any unnecessary risks. If he can't go this week, that'll put more pressure on Brett Toth to step up, which he did a decent job of last week. But this Giants front is a different kind of challenge. As for Ojomo, he exited the fourth quarter of the Vikings game to be evaluated for a concussion. And as of now, there haven't been any firm updates, which likely means he's in the protocol. Again, probably safe to assume he won't be available this week. And losing depth on the defensive interior when you're already managing snaps for guys like Carter and Fletcher Cox isn't ideal. That makes the timing of these returns even more critical. This defense needs bodies. They need fresh legs. And with the grind of the season only intensifying from here, every piece matters. Another name worth paying close attention to is Adoree Jackson. The veteran corner suffered a concussion during the Vikings game as well, and while he had been playing solid football before going down, he's also unlikely to be cleared in time for Sunday. That opens up a big question in the secondary. Who steps up? Kelee Ringo is the most obvious candidate, having already filled in during the second half of that Vikings game. And while he's shown flashes of physicality and aggression, there's still work to be done when it comes to consistency. Fangio pointed out that some of the completions Ringo gave up were on tough routes and not necessarily blown coverage, which suggests the coaching staff still has confidence in his development. Then there's Ja'Kian Bennett, who might be able to return from injured reserve this week. If the Eagles open up his practice window, that could be a sign he's close. But Fangio was clear that they'll need to evaluate how he looks in practice before making any decisions. Bennett hasn't played enough snaps to really form a complete picture of what he brings, but the team is definitely intrigued by his potential. Whether it's Ringo or Bennett, one of those young corners is going to get a shot, and the hope is that they can step in and hold their own in what's going to be a very physical game against the Giants. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments, and let's talk birds. The NFL world is buzzing with disbelief tonight as news emerges of a blockbuster trade between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tennessee Titans. Sources close to the situation suggest that Eagles general manager Howie Roseman has once again shocked the football community with a move no one saw coming. While official details are still trickling in, insiders hint that the trade could reshape the landscape of the league, leaving fans on both sides of the deal scrambling to digest the implications. Rumors indicate that the Titans have agreed to send a key piece from their roster to Philadelphia, a player whose impact on the field has made him a household name in recent seasons. In exchange, the Eagles are reportedly parting with a combination of draft picks and a promising young talent, a package that insiders describe as bold and aggressive. The move is being interpreted by many analysts as Roseman's signature gamble, an audacious strategy that mirrors some of his most controversial decisions in past seasons. Social media has erupted in response to the news. Eagles fans are divided between excitement and skepticism, debating whether the new acquisition will be the missing link for a team hungry for a championship. Meanwhile, Titans supporters are wrestling with a mixture of shock and curiosity, wondering how the departure of a star player will affect the team's long-term prospects. Sports commentators are already speculating about how this trade could ripple through the NFC and AFC, potentially altering playoff dynamics in ways no one anticipated. Though neither team has released an official statement detailing the full scope of the deal, the murmurs are loud enough to ignite fevered discussion across fan forums, podcasts, and sports networks. Roseman's willingness to shake things up mid-season, or even in the off-season, is being hailed as both daring and disruptive, a hallmark of a GM who thrives on surprises. As the league braces for the fallout, one thing is certain. The Eagles-Titans trade has become the hottest topic in football, a tantalizing mystery that fans won't stop speculating about until the first snap. With the NFL landscape potentially shifting overnight, All eyes will remain glued to how the players involved adjust to their new homes, and whether ROSEMAN's headline-grabbing move pays off on the field. For now, the rumor mill continues to churn, leaving fans eagerly awaiting the next twist in a saga that could define the season. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.